Welcome to the Wide Right Podcast with Manny, Navarro, and some other guy.
Welcome back to the Wide Right Podcast. I'm Manny Navarro from The Athletic, joined again by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All-Day pod. I should start calling you Coach Ledo, right? Because of the volleyball coaching job.
Dude, let me tell you, I did such a great job yesterday that when I drove my daughter home, she also brought one of her friends home from practice so her mother could pick her up here from the house. They both passed out on the couch. That was one of my proudest moments in life. I worked
Ran up to the ground.
I ran middle school volleyball players into the ground. Those girls had no idea what hit them.
Yeah, I am coaching basketball again this season in the fall, in addition to covering college football. And so you and I, we'll see who has the better record at the end of the season. But we had our first full team basketball practice and yesterday, and we got rained out because it's outdoors. So we got rained out for the last half hour, but we got an hour in. And the girls, nobody fell asleep, but they were certainly tired and wishing that I wasn't their coach. So
they knew they were in trouble when they went to grab the volleyballs to start practice. And I said, hey, listen, we don't need the volleyballs right now. Just get ready. We're going to warm up and we're going to get going.
Speaking of coaching, Mario Cristobal got the job done against Notre Dame, Carlos. They looked like a team that was ready for the moment. Got a little dicey at the end, as is tradition for Mario Cristobal, but they got the job done, and they beat Notre Dame to open the season with a top 5 ranking, basically, after the preseason poll is done, because the preseason poll is absolutely meaningless. We have no idea who is good, who is bad. We have to take our best educated guesses. And in the end, they beat a really good Notre Dame team, in my opinion, a team that is coming off a trip to the national championship. And as we talked about last week, had a lot of pieces back from that team. I thought CJ Carr looked really, really good. I thought my prediction was pretty much on the money. I said they would win by a score. I didn't know it would be a field goal, but I thought, 24-20 ends up being 27-24. What were your takeaways from that game?
Sure. I mean, I said it last week when we talked. I thought it would be a 3-point game. It'd come down to the kicking game, which was my concern. And obviously after that first muff on the attempted field goal, I was feeling one, vindicated, and two, pissed off that I was right, that the kicking game might be an issue. But luckily, they were still able to nail a game winner there at the end and nail another one. So my impression was this. I think the team is better overall than it was a year ago. I still think there's a bit of issues in the defensive secondaries, particularly at safety. I don't think the safeties played very well. I think Posner missed a couple big-time tackles coming in the hole, ducking his head, not seeing the ball carrier that led to big plays. I also think the linebackers need to play a little bit better. I think Popo Bagiri played well, but outside of that, I think it was pretty up and down, especially in pass coverage. They didn't do a good job there. We talked about last week that Wesley Bissainthe needed to step up this year, his final season, and be the man everybody expected him to be. He had 1 tackle, as many tackles as Chase Smith, who played 5 snaps. You can't have that from who's supposed to be your frontline guy, your best linebacker. Defensive tackle played okay. And we got what we thought we expected we were going to get from the defensive ends. Mesidor and Bain are top flight elite defensive ends. They played well. They really put the pressure on at the end of the game. Carson Beck was solid, exactly what we expected him to be. He wasn't flashy. He did what he had to do to get the job done, was smart with the football, didn't turn it over. And like we said last week, whoever ran the football better and didn't turn it over, if you win the running game battle and you win the turnover battle, you should win this game, and that's what happened. So I think all those things were positives. The only thing that sort of reared its ugly head again was Mario and the time management. That clock management was horrible at the end of the first half. And I turned to my buddy as I'm watching the game, and I said, he better hopes that Carson Beck throws a touchdown on this next play, or else he's going to look like shit for the next week. And sure enough, CJ Daniels with that huge freaking catch. If it wasn't for that, my God, Mario would have looked like shit for an entire week.
Yeah, there were a lot of scary moments towards the end, and I was tweeting during the game, and people were upset with me after the fact because I said epic meltdown as they blew the 24 to 14 lead. But that's the reality of it. I mean, you're supposed to be in those games. You're not supposed to blow a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. And really, what saved their hide ultimately was the tip drill with Bain getting the interception, because that's a possession that already put them in the scoring position to win the game. They went 4 straight possessions without picking up a first down there in the second half. And really, I thought could have been more aggressive, could have been like, we're going to step on your neck and break it in the second half when it was 21-7. Instead, they got conservative, which I understand. That's Mario loves rock fights, right? That's been his reputation since he was a coach at Oregon. But, at some point, I guess my feeling coming out of that game is I don't feel any different than I did going into the season. I thought they could beat Notre Dame. I thought the defense would look better. I thought, somebody will emerge at receiver probably. It was Malachi Toney.
Yep.
CJ Daniels certainly played a good game too. He didn't have any drops. I thought he was pretty much everywhere where he needed to be to make plays. But I'm still worried going down the stretch of the season that they're going to have a moment where they don't play their best and they lose a game. That said, they just beat the best team on their schedule in my mind. I think Notre Dame is still the best team on their schedule. I know Florida beat the crap out of Long Island University, and Florida State had the upset of Alabama at home. But when I sit here and I break down these teams and I look at who's got what and who has the best team to potentially beat Miami, I think they just beat that team.
Yeah, well, remember, historically now over the last 20, 25 years, it doesn't matter who the best team on the schedule is. They end up losing to teams that they shouldn't lose to anyway. So that to me isn't the biggest deal. To me, the biggest deal is, you came out, you played well. You looked like you took a step forward from the year before. The problem is going to be down the road when, we saw what Shannon Dawson did in the second half of this game. It's the same MO that we've seen since he got here. Everybody wanted to take a 1-year break last year and stop hating on him because they had the number one offense in the country. I told everybody that was Cam Ward, generally in the second half, changing plays and doing his own thing. Because as you saw in the second half, what ends up happening is Shannon Dawson comes in with a good game plan for the first half of games. He's got a good script. Once that script is done and he's on his own, it's over. And teams figure him out. He gets very predictable. I was sitting here at home and I was calling plays out. I was like, look, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Inside zone. Look at this. Quick screen. Because he's predictable in terms of the way he runs the offense, and that's a problem. He needs to start getting more. I get it. It's game one, but you would think he'd throw in a wrinkle or two to start the season and change things up and get some explosive plays, which Rhett Lashley is great at doing. We expected here when he was here, and he still does it at SMU, but he hasn't done that really in Miami.
I was listening to a couple of ex-players, Aaron Murray, of course, who was the quarterback at Georgia, and of course his show. He had a couple of players on, and they were talking about this game, and their reaction was maybe that they were holding stuff back in this offense, that it looked like they were being conservative on purpose to save some stuff. I don't know if that's something that coaches honestly do. Carlos, you coach the game at the high school level.
Listen, but they can, but I've watched this guy for 3 years now. That's not it. They're speaking on a 1-game sample size, and I've watched this guy now entering a third season. This is who he is. Right? Last year, you saw Cam Ward running the offense. The year before, you saw Shannon Dawson. This year, we're back to Shannon Dawson. This is what he does. This is the same. If you go back to the Clemson game that they won a couple years ago, if you go back to the second halves of games 2 years ago, you're going to see the same thing you saw here. It's no different. The only difference last year was Cam Ward changing plays. Now, you do save some stuff as you move forward in the season. One, because you can't install your entire offense in an offseason. You always progressively add more as you go along. And also you tailor some specifics in your offense, some game planning to your opponent, things you want to execute on because of their weaknesses or whatever you want to do. So you add a wrinkle here or two to change things up, add new things, and attack whatever you want to attack. But you also bring that into game one. There should have been 1 or 2, maybe 3 plays that you draw up specific to Notre Dame's defense to try to get some explosives and catch them in a way that, you feel is a weakness on their end. And that didn't happen.
That said, I still felt like they were in control of this game from beginning to end. I never felt like Notre Dame really had the upper hand in this game, even, and they didn't. They never led in this game. But I never felt like, okay, Miami's done now. Like they're screwed and somebody needs to save them. I still felt like the game was theirs for the taking from beginning to end. And I thought that was encouraging in large part because of the defense and because Carson Beck wasn't making any mistakes. Yes, he threw the ball up for CJ Daniels to go and get it. And that could have been a pick six the other way. And that would have been a disastrous play for Miami to be down at the half. But I think you have to acknowledge that they were in control of this game pretty much from beginning to end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was encouraging. I think it's encouraging to go in there and start dominating from the get-go and make plays that separate you from the opponent, right? Like, again, that CJ Daniels catch, getting that score right before the half was huge. extending that lead, getting up, and then being up 10, and then starting to give that lead away, and then taking control again by forcing that turnover, right? And then taking advantage of that turnover and getting a score. So all those things are very encouraging. Listen, I would much rather be lucky than good. This is only the third win against the top 10 team in the last 20 years by the Miami Hurricanes. Manny, do you know the three opponents?
Notre Dame, and probably Florida State is my guess.
Notre Dame, and Texas A&M.
All right, Texas A&M. There you go.
There you go. You're correct. 2 out of 3 against Notre Dame, which makes me happy.
You said top 10 or top 25 teams? I thought you said top 10.
Top 10.
Okay,
top 10.
Yeah, top 25. Absolutely. I just wrote that stat in the story, Texas A&M. So I understood wrong. Yeah, I knew it was Texas A&M because that was a couple years ago when they beat them at home in that shootout.
Yep.
Let's talk about Carson Beck and break down some of these numbers from this game. Number one, I thought the biggest stat of the game, and Marcus Freeman agreed with me in his post-game press conference, but ultimately Notre Dame couldn't get pressure on him with four down linemen. And let me tell you, that Boubacar Traore kid, number 5 for Notre Dame, that dude is good. Like, he is good. He beat Francis Mauinoa for the only sack of the game for Notre Dame. But when you look at the PFF numbers, Beck was only under pressure 6 times on his 32 dropbacks. Okay, he was 3 of 5 with 2 touchdowns the 2 times he was pressured. So he threw both of his touchdowns when Notre Dame, came at him. He was blitzed 13 times in this game, 6 of 13 on the blitz, which is not a great number, 1 touchdown. And then really when you look at where he was connecting with his passes, 4 of 10, only 4 of 10 from 10 yards further down the field. So everything was pretty much, 19 of his 32 attempts were 10 yards and in, which is fine. If you win the game and you're able to run the football and pick up first downs, moves the change, which they did. But ultimately here, I think we both feel probably coming out of this game that we're going to have to see more in some big moments from Carson Beck to win big games in terms of throwing the ball down the field and being able to connect with guys. But really, the only guys that were getting open, in my mind, when I looked at it and I went back and I looked at the film, were Daniels and Tony.
Yep.
And the good news for Miami, I think, is you're not going to face a secondary as good as Notre Dame's probably the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, well, and I texted you during the game, and I said Malachi Tony is the only dude getting open. That's the one guy, and he's always open. And let me tell you something. I said pump the brakes on this kid last week because we tend to do that during spring, and we get all this information for camp, and it never turns out to be true. This kid's legit. He could end up being one of the best slot receivers in the country this year, and he's going to be one of the best ones we've had here in Miami in a long time because he's 17 years old, and that kid was doing that to Notre Dame. There was a couple plays where he was they were running mesh return, which is basically mesh is the concept where they have 2 slot guys cross, and return is where he plants and comes back the other way. He just shook the shit out of everybody on Notre Dame's team with that mesh return. And every time he sees Carson Beck scrambling that touchdown, he adjusted his route, came back to the ball, attacked the football, which is not something a young guy tends to do, and got the touchdown there. So it was impressive to see. But I think we still have sort of that issue with the wide receivers. I don't think guys were getting open enough. On the outside, I think CJ Daniels, with the exception of him on a couple of plays, getting open.
He made some nice moves on double moves. I thought CJ Daniels did. He did some,
but nobody was getting open down the field. I think Malachi Tony to me is a problem moving forward.
Yeah.
The other issue I think they miss Elijah Arroyo. Lofton should have been I was expecting him to be a bigger weapon coming into the game. They got him, I think, 1 catch. That needs to improve moving forward.
Yeah, the tight ends will get more involved. I think maybe that was part of the game that they, for whatever reason, left out. Like, if you want to talk about what they were withholding, I think it was Elijah Lofton, right? Like, we didn't see him carry the ball out of the backfield. We didn't see him catch the ball out of the backfield. I think that's the part of the offense that they were saving maybe for Florida or Florida State because they do want to have different wrinkles and throw things at people. Ultimately, this, like I said, the key stat to me, Carson Beck only under pressure on 6 of his 32 dropbacks against Notre Dame, which ranks 6th among all Power 4 quarterbacks, all 63 Power 4 quarterbacks who took at least 14 snaps in week 1. None of those guys face as good a defense as Notre Dame. On the flip side, Miami's defensive line was able to put pressure on him on 10 of CJ Carr's 32 dropbacks, including, like you said, the 2 sacks to end the game. That was 35th. So ultimately, if there's a sign of winning the game at the line of scrimmage, that's it. And not just that, but the rushing stats, being able to outrush Notre Dame in that game and hold Jeremiah Love to 33 yards on 10 touches. let's talk a little bit. We talked about Beck. We talked about the receivers. What about the offensive line? As I mentioned earlier, Maui Noah gave up the only sack. I thought the rest of the guys on that line looked good, and I thought the big sort of news coming out of this game is that Samson Okunlola played a bunch of snaps at left
Yeah.
guard and looked very, very good at left guard, probably better than Matthew McCoy.
Yeah, and that's what I told you coming into the game. I told you I wasn't sold on Matthew McCoy at left guard. I never thought he was all that good. I'm glad Okunlola stepped in. Once we saw that happening, I texted you. I told you, hey, I told you McCoy sucks. But yeah, I think Markel Bell it was okay on the left side. Their pass block grades. He had a 46.7 pass block grade. That might be a little bit too low, but he did give up 3 pressures on the left side. Mawanoa had played a good game. He had those that gave up that 1 sack. Inez Cooper gave up 3 pressures as well. They were better, I think, run blocking this game than they were pass blocking. And that's saying something, considering they only gave up 6 pressures according to the numbers. But I think this offensive line is good. I don't think it's elite yet. I think maybe the addition of Okunlola and Markel Bell's development will lead to that as the season goes on, to getting to a higher level. But right now, I think they're good with room to grow.
I think you sound like Alex Mirabal right now in his film study room, right? Demanding more from this group, in terms of what they did.
Well, listen, they've got to be dominant, right? When you're in a situation late in games and you need to close out a game, you can't go 4 straight series without picking up a first down.
Correct.
And where the foundation of that is running the football. You've got to have your offensive line be able to, grind guys out, be able to pick up first downs on the ground, keep the clock moving, and seal games away. And they didn't do that this game. They'll have that to work on. I'm sure they can do that moving forward.
Jordan Lyle started the game for Miami at running back, got nicked up after 10 snaps, I think it was, that he ended up playing total in that game. Mark Fletcher came off the bench, led the team in rushing, had 33 snaps played. Shamar Brown, Marty Brown. People are calling him Back to the Future, by the way, Marty Brown. 27 snaps.
Wow, so game. he's this is interesting, because that would mean he's Marty and Doc Brown's love child.
Exactly, right. They're saying we should call him Back to the Future, Marty Brown.
Somebody needs to get him a DeLorean via NIL immediately.
Marty Brown was huge in this game, scored the rushing touchdown, played well. I like what they've got at running back in terms of the 3-headed monster. Marty Brown definitely looks like a valuable addition to this team. And I said it to you before the season. He's got more experience than both of those guys, Fletcher and Jordan Lyle, because he's gotten more touches in his career. Ran for, close to 1,200 yards last season at North Dakota State. And, big addition, big physical guy. And he's only a redshirt sophomore, which is great. Which means you probably hold on to him after next season, or going into next season as well. Look, ultimately, what grade do you give the offense for this game?
I give them a B+. I think they were good. They were solid. They were good enough to win. I think they left some points on the field. They could have been better. They didn't turn the ball over, which was great. I thought they could have run the ball a little bit better. But other than that, I think they had a solid game. To open up against such a good opponent, against a good defense, a team that played for that national championship a year ago, I think this is as good as you could expect. If they would have come out there and scored 50 points, that would have been a shocker to me. But I think getting 27, getting the win, and doing just enough to win was impressive. Like I said, I wish they would have been able to finish the game off in those last 4 series, being able to grind the clock out and gain some yardage and get maybe another 3 points to extend that cushion. But other than that, I thought they were solid.
Yeah, I would say this. I'm looking at the rushing by direction numbers here for the team. They ran
inside zone.
Yeah, 17 of the rush attempts were right either to the left of the center or the right of the center. So obviously a lot of work there, and they didn't, it wasn't a huge average. The best that they ran in terms of yards per carry was obviously through the right side. When they run behind Inez Cooper and Francis Marido, and they only ran to that side 7 times combined when you ran to the right between the guard and the tackle, or just outside of the tackle. They 7 carries. I'm doing the math now. 48 yards. So maybe they were holding back some of what they wanted to show, and not peak too much. No,
I disagree. This is the same offense that you've seen from Shannon Dawson before. This is not. They ran a lot of inside zone last year. They don't do a whole lot of pulling. They should do more pulling and mixing it up and running more traps, more guard traps, tackle traps, using influences, things of that nature. What they did do was run a lot of what they call split zone schemes where the offensive line blocks zone one way and the tight end comes across and blocks the defensive end, kicks them out. They do a lot of that along with their inside zone schemes. I don't understand why they don't do more off tackle stuff, more pulling, do more things that other teams across the country. That's basic stuff. This is not something that's a wrinkle. That's the other thing. This is not a wrinkle. This is not holding something back. Everyone runs power. Everyone runs trap. Everyone runs leads. It's a scheme that's pretty basic. So it's just the structure of the offense. It's I think maybe hopefully down the season we'll see some more evolution out of it. But the other thing you don't see a whole lot of is window dressing. Like you can get to these different these same plays just from different looks using motions. We've talked about this, man. Come on, motions, formation changes, shifts, things of that nature.
All right, let's talk about the defense now. Corey Heatherman, I thought, was the MVP of this performance for Miami, and I say that because you look at the way this defense looked at the end of last season and the way that they debuted from a communication standpoint, right? How often they were blowing coverage, how often there was confusion. Clearly, this is a different defense, and look, they started 7 new guys on this defense, 6 of them transfer, so. When you put new players out there, you're going to get different results. But one real breakdown the entire game, granted, it was a costly breakdown in the fourth quarter, and it led to the game-tying touchdown. But when I went back and I watched the film, there were not many times when I said to myself, that guy's in the wrong spot. That guy's in the wrong spot. That guy – and really it was Motori who blew the coverage, right? Yeah. He was supposed to stay with the tight end and just sort of got sucked into that. The first touchdown that they gave up on the CJ Carr scramble, I mean, how are you supposed to cover for 9 seconds, right? Like, that's a really hard thing to do. I get why the receiver came open on the 9th second there. But other than that, Miami's biggest problem from last season is no longer really a problem.
Yeah, and I think they tackled well. For a first game of the season, they only missed 7 tackles. On the Torrey play, what ended up happening was it looked like they were playing man, and he thought they were in zone. Because he seems shuffling to his zone, which is his hook curl zone, getting out there and then letting the tight end get behind him, assuming they had deep help over the top, which he didn't have. I think the linebackers were pretty shoddy in coverage. The running backs were able to get open and tight ends a couple times for Notre Dame. Aside from that, I think they played well. I mean, overall, the defense played well. Clearly, there were times where you wish they could put the foot down and put a nail in the coffin, which they did during that last series. But there's going to be a progression, man. This is a brand new defense, a lot of new personnel, new defensive coordinator. But I think, like you said, they're communicating better. They're in the right spots. There wasn't a lot of blown coverages, except for that one time with Toure, and just having to cover for 9 seconds. Another touchdown. Other than that, I think they look a lot better. To me, though, I think the concern is the safeties aren't that great in coverage, and them coming up and run support, they're not great tacklers. At least they didn't show that in game 1.
Well, Poyser, yeah, I agree. I think Poyser ultimately could have had a better game. Jacoby Thomas as well. But all in all, again, there were not many instances where Notre Dame receivers were running open. And to me, my biggest question mark coming in wasn't necessarily the secondary, because I felt like that was going to be a good unit. I thought Xavier Lucas played well. Damari Brown obviously had, led to the tip that led to the Bain interception. Nobody as far as the cornerback position worried me one bit in this game. OJ Frederic, I thought, played well.
I think all the corners played well.
What I was worried about more than anything was D tackle. And I was worried that Notre Dame was going to be able to stuff the ball down their throats. And instead, what we got was David Blay, the Louisiana Tech transfer, starting that game, playing 40 snaps and doing a really good job. He had his one sort of breakaway moment where Notre Dame forgot to block him. Their redshirt freshman guard, Gerbert, forgot to block him. Gerby Lambert, I think is the kid's names. And Blay was able to get to CJ Carr and force the TFL. But besides that, Moton, I thought, was solid. Yes, CJ Carr got away from him on that touchdown, but he was solid otherwise. You shouldn't expect a 320-pound man to have to chase the quarterback out of the pocket. He's supposed to get him in the pocket. And then Justin Scott had the big, tackle for loss, or not tackle for loss, but forced fumble on Malachi Fields. And so to me, I was worried about if they can handle the interior of Notre Dame's offensive line, which is good, and they can, hold a guy like Jeremiah Love to 33 yards, I feel pretty good about the D tackles now. I just needed to see it. I had to
Yeah.
trust. Those guys had to earn my trust more than anything else.
No, absolutely, and we agreed on that last week, and I totally agree with you. They played solid. They were what they needed to be, and I think this is a good launching pad for them moving forward. Now they can gain that confidence and know they can play with anybody during the remainder of the schedule. This might be if not the best, one of the best offensive lines. Definitely, they're going to play the entire season.
One underrated sort of performance, I thought, Popo Aguirre. I know you weren't necessarily happy with the coverage of some of the linebackers, but he played 23 snaps, third most of all the linebackers behind Torre.
Led the team in tackles. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, go ahead. You talk about Popo. What do you think? 23 snaps, what he did.
Well, 5 tackles. His tackle grade was an 83.2. He was the best coverage linebacker, or second best, at 66.3. Well, actually, the best, 66.3 in coverage in terms of PFF score. I thought in the snaps that he was there, you saw he was effective. You noticed him on the field, which to me was a big bonus compared to some of the other guys.
And another guy who I thought played well was Keontae Scott, who was kind of an underrated, under-talked about pickup in terms of the corners. He's a starting nickelback, and he performed, I thought, really, really well as well in coverage. But played I think, was it the most snaps on the team? Keontae Scott did in the end.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I think it was impressive. Like you said, he wasn't a guy that was very talked about coming into the season, but I think that was a great addition. That might have been sort of the secondary saving addition coming into this, because you need a good nickel and a guy you could trust to cover guys in the slot. And I think overall the corners to me were really good.
Explain to the listeners why the nickelback position is so unique now in college football. Because before, when you played nickel, you're like, oh, that's the third best corner, or the fourth best corner. Why do you even need a nickel? Why has that changed in college football, Carlos?
Well, because the teams coming in with spread offenses, so you have multiple receiver sets. Back in the day, you didn't have 3 or 4 receivers on the field at all times. You were basically playing 2 receivers and 1 tight end, or 2 receivers and 2 tight ends, and covering those guys up. So you didn't necessarily need to bring an additional corner onto the field to cover a slot guy. You could be able to cover 2 corners, put a linebacker or a strong safety, roll them down to the box, and use that in the coverage spot, because you weren't playing against faster guys. Now the evolution of the game has gotten to the point where it's all about spreading the field, using open grass against the defense, being able to get the ball to a guy as he's moving in open spots, and letting him do something with the football afterwards. And you've seen, a lot of times the last few years in college football, some of the best receivers in the country, the ones with the most yards, are slot receivers. So you need a really good corner. Sometimes your slot corner, your nickel corner, is more important than your outside corners, because generally what you're going to be facing on the outside is the bigger receivers that maybe aren't as explosive, that are going to use their bodies to get open and pick up big yards and try and jump ball you in the end zone. Whereas the slot guy is a fast guy, and he's off the line of scrimmage, so he can move in motion. You could shift him, you can move him around and use that momentum to have him gain speed before the ball's even snapped, and then put your corner in a tough position. So your nickel guy probably has to be your best cover guy now in college football.
And I would say you also have to be good against the run, because you're closer to the 5 offensive linemen. You got to be able to recognize when a team's running the ball, how to adjust, and then how to help that guy stay between the tackles and not bounce outside and make a big play if they're blocking the play well. So it's a tougher position to play, only because you're closer to the line of scrimmage and where the ball is.
And also remember, those slot guys are the ones that are getting the bubble screens and the quick screens. So you got to come up and make a play, right, break down, and be able to make a solid tackle coming up on the ball.
Yeah. All right. We've been at this now for about half an hour. Let's talk about what else happened in college football. I don't know how many of the other games you watched, but it was a big weekend in terms of opponents for Miami. Number one, they played Bethune-Cookman this week. Bethune-Cookman lost to FIU. I think it was 41-9 or something like that. I forgot what the score was.
That is not a good start to the season.
And
this as a Golden Panther alumni, I have my MBA from FIU. FIU aren't world beaters. If they smack you 41-9 and you're coming into Hard Rock, I would expect something a little bit worse.
It's a lot tougher to be an FCS team these days. You're getting picked apart by all the G5s, and all your best players are constantly leaving. It's really hard. So I'm not going to throw any stones at Bethune-Cookman. It's a really tough job in college football. That said, this is a preseason game for Miami this week. You'll get a chance to see a lot of the freshmen, a lot of the guys who were not going to play this season that are going to be backups in the big games, third stringers. You will see them play. We will get a chance to see Emory Williams and the improvements he made. I think he's going to look better than he did at the end of last season. You'll get a chance to see some of the young running backs, some of the younger receivers who probably won't get a chance to play. So this will be. I'm not even gonna go to the game on Saturday. I got other things to do, Carlos. But it will be a blowout. Miami will play well, and really all you want to be is injury free at the end of that game. So, but the rest of the schedule is gotten a lot more interesting. Right? You got USF the following week. USF beat Boise State. They just beat Boise State. They beat them like a drum, 34-7. I watched the second half of that game. I started watching right when they ran that fake punt and hit the long touchdown pass to kind of go up 2 scores and take control of that game. But what impressed me most about USF was the speed. Florida State, we mentioned it earlier at the top of the hour. They are Miami's fifth opponent after Florida. So you're gonna have USF. You're going to have Florida, and then you're going to have Florida State back to back for Miami in terms of opponents. Florida State absolutely embarrassed Alabama, who was a preseason top 8 team, a team I thought would be much better, Carlos, because this is Kalen DeBoer's second season. I thought, well, last year didn't end well for them. They're going to want to come out and make a statement. Instead, their new quarterback, Ty Simpson, was just average. The offense was just average, but really what was incredible was how the Gus Bus just ran over Alabama in a 31-17 victory. Tommy Castellanos and the offense they just made plays, ran for over 200 yards in Alabama and took it to them. This is a little bit more interesting of a schedule now. I'm curious to gather your thoughts on those 3 teams: USF, Florida, and Florida State. And what's beyond Bethune-Cookman for Miami?
We said it last week. Well, first of all, I could throw rocks at Bethune-Cookman because of the way they handled Ed Reed. So I'm going to throw a rock right there. Maybe you wouldn't get beat 41-9 by FIU if you hadn't handled the GOAT safety at the University of Miami and Hall of Famer Ed Reed the way you did. But hey, we'll move on. Anyway, in terms of South Florida, we talked about it last week. I said it last week. They're going to be a lot better than people anticipated. And, of course, I should have, instead of put Timu Sugats, I should have put in the little label there, marked safe from stupid YouTube comments. People were telling me I was crazy. How am I going to hype up USF? What do you mean Florida State's going to be a lot better than they were a year ago? What are you talking about?
I said 7-5, 8-4 for FSU, and people were criticizing me for saying that.
Yeah, SMU's going to be good. Get out of here. All right, guys. There you go. Listen, this is why you come to us. All right. Whenever you want football information that's accurate and unbiased, you come to us now. You don't go to anybody else. And that reminds me of this little clip in Harry Potter, Voldemort. Now you come to me, right? Whenever you need good information, you come to me. But yeah, listen, I think South Florida is going to be a good test, specifically because of the brand of football they play and the way they play with their quarterback. Because Brown is very athletic. He's hard to bring down. You saw that big long run he had against Boise State where he broke like 15 tackles. He looked like Bo Jackson in Tecmo Bowl back in the day, just shaking him. So I think that's going to be a good opponent to get really, really amped up and get ready for what you might face with DJ Lagway in Florida. I know they played Long Island University. It was very difficult for them to digest the pizza they ate before the game that Long Island brought to them to try and lull them to sleep, but they were still able to get the victory. I didn't even know Long Island University had a football team, and their mascot is a shark, by the way.
Yes, I don't know where that comes from.
It shouldn't be like a sewer rat or something like that. Like that's more Long Island to me than shark. A freaking like a big sewer rat just with a gold chain and like a Guido type jacket. Like, hey, what's going on here? Like, whatever. To each their own. I guess the marketing's better with a shark. Florida's going to be tough. I think DJ Lagway is going to present also a unique challenge for them at the quarterback spot. They're going to have to face athletic quarterbacks back to back, and then Castellanos as well is going to be another challenge. So we'll see how they're set up defensively to be able to handle that. Historically, over the last few years, that hasn't gone well for us. So we'll see how that goes. But I think these next 3 opponents, the next month or so of the season is really going to be telling as to where they're able to go moving forward. Are they a real playoff contender? Can they handle this tough of a stretch? Because it's not just, obviously these opponents maybe not be as good as Notre Dame, but a stretch of opponents like this is difficult to handle because you've got to be prepared and on your game for each of these games and be ready to play and avoid injury at the same time. So it's going to be a very interesting stretch to watch.
One thing to note from USF, and we'll come back with another show next week, but probably talking about the Bulls a little bit more and a little less about what happened against Bethune-Cookman. But 19 missed tackles for them defensively against Boise State, and they still won that game 34-7. So it like you said, Alex Golesh is going to always have a good offense. He's with a healthy quarterback, they're going to look much better than they should. And don't forget, last year's game in Tampa, it's pretty close at halftime, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brown was playing well. I mean, it's one of those things. Until he got his bell rung, the
Right.
game was secure.
Right. So I think the theme is athletic quarterbacks. We're going to find out if Corey Heatherman's, just how deep this defense really is. And you go back and you look at snap counts from this game for Miami, who in terms of who's played. You go Bryce Fitzgerald got in the game, the true freshman. He was the 7th DB that got into the game. You had Damari Brown, Ethan O'Connor, OJ Frederic, Lucas, Jacoby Thomas, Poyser, and Scott. Those are all the DBs that played in this game. So you'll get a chance to probably see some other guys like Charles Brantley, who we didn't see at all in that game. You had Wesley Bissainthe, Mohamed Torre, Raul Aguirre, Chase Smith. Those were the 4 linebackers. I'm sure we'll get to see Kamal Bonner at some point if he's healthy. Cam Pruitt, we'll get a chance to see here. Defensive line, you had Mesidor, Blay, Moten, Bain, Blunt, Scott, Lightfoot, and Malik Bryant that all got in the game. We did not see Cole McConaughey, Booker Pickett, Artavius Jones, Dalen Russell, or any of the freshmen, Hayden Lowe, Herbert Scroggins, or Donta Simpson. So all those D linemen are going to have to get some experience in this Bethune-Cookman game and be ready to chase down an athletic quarterback for the next month, because that's what Miami's got on the schedule.
Yeah, and remember, now this is going to be, I hate to foreshadow a little bit. I've already mentioned it a couple times, but this is where the safeties are going to be very important too, and run support. When you got an athletic quarterback, he's going to get to that second level, and the difference between an 8 to 10 yard gain and a touchdown is a safety being able to come up and run support in the right fit and make a solid tackle. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, and I would say offensively, I'm interested to see what some of these other offensive linemen look like here against Bethune. Ryan Rodriguez played 4 snaps. I want to see what Bruno Kinsler looks like, because if, God forbid, something happens to one of your interior offensive linemen, like Inez Cooper, Kinsler's the next guy I think up on the list after Ryan Rodriguez. So I want to see what he looks like in this game. I want to see what some of the young tackles look like, guys that they've been working on. Derek Plaz, who's in his second year, another guy that Mirabal pretty much handpicked, from the Jacksonville area that he likes. So I want to see those guys. I want to see Elijah Lofton involved a lot more. I want to see the tight ends. Alex Bauman and him played a lot. Bauman was out there blocking quite a bit, didn't catch a pass. Tight ends get involved. And then, receiver, Ray Joseph, 8 snaps. I don't think he had a catch. JoJo Trader only played 9 snaps in this game. I think he was on a pitch count because of injuries in fall camp. Tony Johnson, the kid they got from Cincinnati, played 2 snaps. No Night Carr, no Chance Robinson, no Dalen Upshaw. I'm sure we'll get a chance to see all of those guys plenty in Bethune-Cookman game. So,
and let me say about JoJo Trader. He didn't get any opportunities this game, but I saw one play that really impressed me with this kid, and it shows me. Yep, that shows me what kind of a player he is, what kind of a worker he is, what kind of a guy he is. I'm rooting for that kid this season now because of the way that effort he put in that run block. Yep. He came into motion, came through the line of scrimmage, and found whoever he could find in that second level and went after it. And he came in like a psychopath. It was so impressive that my friends, my wife's cousin, was like, "Oh my God, this guy is crazy. He came in there like an animal." I'm like, "Yeah, I love it. That's the way you're supposed to do it."
We got some questions for the mailbag, not a ton of them, but I'm gonna go through as many as possible here. This is from Renton RC. Notre Dame was a must-watch win with the massive FSU improvement and impressive USF win. Daniel's catch may have been a season-changing one. How do you view the 4-game stretch now versus the preseason? We kind of went over this, but we can say, how do you view it? Is this? Let me ask you this question. Let me give you a hypothetical. If they lose one of the next few games against either USF, Florida, or Florida State, is it this an entirely different season and outlook for you?
No, because I think if you're going to lose one, I thought Notre Dame might be the one they might lose, but I think looking at the stretch now, because of the difficulty, maybe staying healthy through that period, they may drop one. And if they drop one, that's okay. That's understandable. I think they can bounce back from that and finish the season strong. If they finish ACC play undefeated, outside of maybe a loss to Florida State, then you're in the playoff picture because of your win versus Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. All right, I agree with you. I think this team now, because they beat Notre Dame, could probably afford to lose one, and then it just depends on what happens with the ACC. But if Florida State is as good as they think they are, which personally I still think they're a 8-win team probably, If Florida State is still as good as they think they are, that means they'll be in the conversation for the conference championship. And if they have a head-to-head win over Miami in Tallahassee, that could potentially lift them into the ACC championship game instead of Miami, which at that point, who knows what happens. So
yeah,
we'll
and
see.
I saw you holding back a little bit your enthusiasm for Florida State when you said 8 wins. You were about to say 10, and you had to hold it. You had to choke back the Seminole fandom.
Let me tell you, there's nothing I get called more than a Seminole fan by the angry Miami fan base, who still believes that. By the way, there's a lot of them who still hit me on Twitter saying "F you Seminole," all that kind of stuff. All right, this is from Armando Izaguirre, AY2 Mondo on Twitter, one of our longtime listeners. How are pundits critical of a tough TD pass while getting his legs hit rather than praising Beck for his poise? He's talking about the touchdown pass, of course, to CJ Daniels. Carlos, you want to handle that one?
I mean, dude, listen, Armando, you're a sharp guy. You've been listening to the show for a long time. You've been a Hurricanes fan for a long time. When does anyone praise a Miami Hurricanes player? When does the general national media and college football in general, outside of the Miami fan base, ever really praise anyone on the Miami team? All right, I'll leave it at that. Although I will say the one guy I heard be very effusive about Carson Beck's performance this week was Todd McShay. And he was talking about how he saw Carson Beck at Georgia, and he saw him in this game against Notre Dame, and he says Carson Beck looks like he's having fun playing football again, and he seems like a different guy, like he's a really good fit down here in terms of the culture, the team, and as the kind of leader the Hurricanes need, and played very well.
I will say this. I was in the post-game press conference, Carlos, and I wrote my story kind of leading with this. Carson Beck, after the game was over, I think he had done more than his share of interviews, just wanted to go home. Carter Davis, who kicked the game-winning field goal, 47-yarder, who we didn't spend a second talking about, by the way. Carter Davis is on stage answering questions, and all of a sudden I look to my left because I'm standing up against the wall, and I see Carson Beck sort of motioning with a couple of Miami police officers, like to hurry things up. They're like saying, "Come on, let's get this thing done. Like, I want to go home." And then he walks right past Carter Davis, pats him on the back, and says, "Come on, bro, it's past my bedtime. Like, stop talking already. I want to go home. I want to get this interview done with." Just a little color from behind the scenes that people don't get a chance to see. I'm pretty sure Carson Beck did not go home and go to sleep. I'm pretty sure he was out having fun after that game Sunday night, especially
Allegedly
on Monday. Yes,
he was allegedly out on the town.
Anyway, let's move on to the next question. This is from Sam Knowlton. I was very wrong about the field goal situation. So what will be our Achilles heel instead? Good question here from Sam Knowlton. What do you think is Miami's Achilles heel now? Now that we've seen better play from the receivers, now that we've seen the D tackles, what do you think? What are you still worried about, Carlos, as far as an Achilles heel?
Safety. I keep mentioning it, but I think safety to me is a concern. I think the way they were playing against the top flight team was a little bit concerning. They'll be better as the season goes on, but there'll be challenges like the athletic quarterbacks that are going to have to be facing be better in that run support than they were against Notre Dame. The kicking game got through it this game. They had favorable conditions in terms of the wind and stuff like that. We'll see how it goes moving forward. I'm still going to keep an eye on that because, as good as much as impressive as it was to make those kicks under pressure this game, it's still not Borregales. It's not an automatic guy. So we got to see how we do moving forward. I'm still going to keep an eye on that. But to me, overall, safety is my main concern moving forward.
I did ask Carter Davis what's changed because he was 2 of 7 last season, 4 of 11 in his career in field goals at FAU. And granted, he was mostly the kickoff guy. But 2 of 7 on field goals and 4 of 11 in your career is not a good percentage as a kicker. In fact, it's pretty terrible. And his response to me was, I've got a better group, handling the snap, handling doing the snap and handling the snap, and that it's faster, it's more efficient, and so that is a big difference for him. I've never been a kicker, Carlos. I've kicked a couple field goals. I went to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. I made a 30-yarder myself. Actually, they have a. I don't know if you've been to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Would have slipped that in there?
It's my pickleball exploits, my coaching. Every now and then I got to humble brag.
If only the Dolphins had you and not Ray Finkel. My God.
So, but I've never been a kicker. Obviously, that's going to make a difference, right? If you've got a better holder and a better.
I was a holder, so I held throughout high school. So it's very important in terms of getting a good snap and getting the ball down to give the kicker his rhythm. and give him the opportunity to kick through in the motion that he's expecting to kick through. If you sort of muff the snap a little bit or the ball's too high and you have to set it down, it throws off his rhythm because he has to sort of stutter step before coming to the ball, which affects the kick. So what you need is a solid snap, a good hold, laces out, a nice lean to the ball so he can get under it and get it through. So when I saw that first snap getting muffed, I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I've been in that spot before. The first thing you yell is fire, fire, but I don't know if the Aussie knows how to do that. Barbie, shrimp on the Barbie.
Look, he could have made that kick. It was good from 47. He hit it hard enough where I think it probably been good from 55, 60 maybe even. It was going through the uprights, still going up. I thought as it crossed the upright. So he's got a strong leg. He does handle the kickoffs. But I think Miami wants to be in as many situations where they don't have to count on the kicker to win the game. That's for sure. All right, this is from Rodney King 06 on Twitter. Does this win change your outlook on Miami season? I kind of already answered that earlier, Carlos. For you, does it change the outlook at all?
It does not, no. I had said Canes by 3 last week, so you're welcome.
All right. Spectrum News, Asher Wildman, one of our longtime listeners. So glad you guys are back. Serious question. If the O-line is such a strength for us, as is our running backs, why does Miami not do the tush push? Do we not have the bodies to control this? Call it the storm surge or forward flood, but the play is rarely seen in college. Go Canes.
Well, I think you don't want to injure Carson Beck in a scrum like that. That's one.
Right.
So you would have to substitute quarterbacks to do that. But you kind of saw that with Brown in his touchdown where the offensive line just grabbed him and basically carried him over the line into the end zone.
Marty Brown. Yes.
Right.
Back to the future.
Yeah. And he didn't have to use his DeLorean and go 88 miles an hour to do it, but he got in the end zone. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those things where, it's also, I think it's a pride thing as a coach. You don't want to rely on that as like an actual play, as a central point of your offense. I mean, it works for Philly. That's, their thing. But you don't want to injure a quarterback in one of those situations, and you don't want to be known for the tush push being your best run play.
And there really were no instances in this game where you needed to use the tush push, because I thought most of the third and fourth and short type situations were like 2 yards or 3 yards. I don't remember many
and ones
third and inches I think they were a little bit further away. This is from 16V Lover Hurricane Q, another longtime listener. Good morning, guys. Asked Ledo if after a couple of years having the number one offense in the country last year and this one game under his belt, what's the take on Dawson? What did he see that he liked and what did he dislike? Adelante, go Canes. After you watch the show, Hurricane Q, you will know how Carlos feels about.
Listen, I've given you plenty. I gave this guy a 1 week reprieve. All right, I coming into the season, we had a clean slate. I wanted to see if he had learned anything from Cam Ward, but apparently he didn't. So, I mean, there's going to be games where you're going to see the same thing you saw against Notre Dame. 3-4 drives in a row, maybe 5, where you get nothing, where you get maybe 1 or 2 first downs and you get off the field. They reverted back to being a bad third down team. They were 5-14, I believe, in this game. They were one of the worst third down teams in the country, or at least middle of the pack, down to the bottom 2 years ago. They were the best last year, not so much 2 years ago. So, again, of course, having the number 1 pick in the draft helps all that. And also, I think Cam Ward's ability to make plays has a lot to do with that, and his ability to change plays at the line of scrimmage and get guys in the right spots. But Shannon Dawson going Shannon Dawson. You know what I'm saying?
All right, Carlos, that's it for the questions, the mailbag questions for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I've been asked 1,000 times, is this going to be uploaded to a streaming service in terms of being able to listen to it on Apple Pods or whatever, StreamYard, all these. We record on StreamYard and we upload this to YouTube now. That's where the show is always going to be going forward. At some point, could we potentially go back to just an audio version? I doubt it. But The Athletic redid their podcast department. Basically, I was told, hey, listen, we don't have enough people to handle this anymore. I've been recording the show on my own now for several years anyway and producing it on my own. So really all they were doing was uploading it for me to the audio hosts. So you're going to have to watch us on YouTube. You're going to have to see these 2 beautiful mugs in your face like we are right now.
And listen, forward. Why would you want to miss out on this? This is dad bod heaven, as we've discussed it before. This is our demographic visually here on YouTube is the 57 to 68-year-old women who never married and have 15 cats. This is our demographic. The rest of you can join us. Enjoy it. Enjoy what they enjoy. There's something about us. We have some sort of a
There's a little bit of charm there. There's a little charm there.
And if you're wondering why why I've been on the show so much over the last few years, it's because Manny's been producing and he can't find anybody else.
Timu Stugatz. That's the right name for you there, Carlos. All right. Thanks for tuning into the Wide Right Podcast. We will be back next week. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, watch us on YouTube. That's where we are now all the time. We're not going to be anywhere else. See you later.
Peace.